Explore Utah's strategic direction for an abundant energy future through a discussion of the challenges, opportunities, and innovations that are shaping Utah's rapidly evolving energy landscape. Please welcome to the stage Nate Walkingshaw, Dick Garlish, Emy Lesofski, and Jonathan Perry.
I know, these couches are soft.
I know, right? It's comfy. All right, well, it's comfy and that's great because I'm really lucky because I get to be here with three of my friends to talk about my favorite subject, which is energy. We had a really great setup by Secretary Burgum and the governor for all the things that we're gonna talk about today. And as everyone here knows, and as the governor pointed out, it's been a year since the announcement of Operation Gigawatt, and we have been moving at what feels like lightning speed. And just trying to get the rest of the country to keep up with us. So we've got here some of the folks that are really integral to making Operation Gigawatt and frankly, the future success of Utah a reality. So I would like to welcome my co-panelists, and I'm gonna just have you guys each introduce yourself and talk about your role in the energy ecosystem in Utah. So we'll go ahead and start with Nate and go on down.
Before we do that, will you tell everyone who you are?
Oh, me, yeah. Hi. I like to get to the meat of it. I'm Emy Lesofski. I'm the director of the Office of Energy Development and the energy advisor to the governor.
Yeah, amazing. My name's Nate Walkingshaw. I'm the CEO of Tourus. We design, engineer, and manufacture energy storage and energy management products. We are vertically integrated with the utility, with Dick's team, and we get dispatched every single day to help expand the resilience of the grid and modernize the grid with Dick. It's an awesome opportunity. We are built right here in Utah. We started in Springville. Our manufacturing facilities in South Salt Lake were about almost 140 employees now. I think last year when I was here, we were 38 employees. So we've grown, yeah.
Amen.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Dick Garlish, and I'm the president of Rocky Mountain Power. We're in the business generating, transmitting, and distribution of electric energy that is the backbone of our economy and the quality of our life. We serve about 1.2 million customers in Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho, and we have about 2,000 employees that work very, very hard to keep the lights on for everybody.
All right, good morning. So I'm Jonathan Perry, and I'm the CEO and president of ACES Delta. And so ACES Delta is a green hydrogen project. It's about 220 megawatts of electrolysis down in Delta, Utah. And we combine that with 2 underground salt storage caverns for short and long duration dispatchable energy. And that goes across the street over to the power plant with IPP. And so we're currently in construction and commissioning of those assets and bringing those online to commercial operations this year.
Great. All right, well, thanks, guys. So I just want to start off by talking about sort of what we need as we look towards the future for reliable, affordable, secure energy for the state of Utah. And you know, we heard from Secretary Burgum where people had talked a lot about an energy transition. Secretary Burgum and the governor talked about energy addition. We're certainly talking about things from an abundance perspective. But I also, things are evolving constantly, as I think that the innovations that both Jonathan and Nate represent here, and that frankly Rocky Mountain Power has to figure out how to integrate into the system. So looking at sort of the evolving moment that we're in, and we're seeing emerging technologies, but also aging infrastructure at the same time, how do you take, from a Rocky Mountain Power perspective, I'm gonna kick this to you first, Dick, you know, you're in an interesting position to have to find balance for the utility while dealing with all of these problems and challenges and opportunities, frankly, that you're facing. So how is your team balancing all of this in this moment in history?
Thanks. It is a really interesting moment in history. There's a lot of things going on in the industry, in technology, in the larger economy. But I think to understand where we're going, kind of have to understand where we've been and how we got to this moment. You know, we're an investor-owned utility, and there's some things that about in this electric space that have been true for over 100 years. And that is the way you make it affordable and reliable and provide stability for customers is you have to realize economies of scale, which means you build big machines and you distribute it over a diversity of load. And we got to the investor-owned utility because of this concept of all of those, to build those big machines and to realize economies of scale, you have to make capital investments. and those capital investments are very lumpy by nature. So you have to have the right kind of investor. And for 80 years, we've been using this model where the investor comes in and he pays the cost of doing the business up front in exchange for customers to serve and an opportunity to earn a reasonable rate of return. So basically, we front the money and then recover from customers later. And that's what really electrified the West in the nation, really, especially in the urban parts. And that worked really well for 80 years. And all of the way we chose resources, whether it be transmission, generation, distribution, or new technologies, was based on the laws of physics and economics. What's the most reliable? What's the least risk? What's the most economic? And that worked pretty well for 100 years, because that's the way we did it. And then we went through a very brief period, but an important period, where there was so much innovation. And I remember going to the meetings and people saying, now that we can get rid of our avocado green refrigerator and have, a refrigerator that's 3 times more efficient and curly cool light bulbs, we're going to have too much capacity. We shouldn't build things, and we should stop innovating and just, ride it out, and we'll keep growth. We'll keep pace with our growth. In my opinion, that was a pretty pivotal mistake in retrospect, because then we moved into the transition period where we got away from the fundamentals of, deciding, making good decisions, long-term decisions based on fundamentals of physics and economics, and got into being whiplashed by, different types of policies and being forced to enter into an environment where we don't have that clarity of stability about what kind of costs will we recover, or how do we earn our authorized rate of return. Because we have to comply with our commissions, we have to comply with the federal government, and all those changes. I was really happy to hear Secretary Bergman, because I'm just glad that I don't get all the government I pay for from the federal government. It put a lot of barriers. We had our biggest transmission line that we've been able to build was an overnight success that took 18 years because of permitting and other issues. So when we're in that moment going forward, we're at a point where we haven't built things, and we need to build things, all kinds of things. And, affordability and reliability comes from diversity of loads, but diversity of resources and diversity of generations. There's no one magic generation box. They all have inherent strengths and weaknesses, either reliability or cost-wise. But we need to work together to find the ones that we can optimize, and space for innovation. There's so much new technologies. Nate and I have been able to work really well together. We found a way to bring his technology forward and mature it and provide value to customers and a path through it. So there are things that we can do together, and we need to start focusing on that. And I want to go back to the future, because when I meet with my customers, they're at a point, because of the pressures on inflation and other parts, that make it pretty clear to me, Garlish, I want to have like 3 interactions with you. You're a great guy, you're fun at parties, but I want to have 3 interactions with you. I want to sign up for your service. I want somebody to come fix it when I don't have it. And I want not just affordability and reliability, but I want stability. I want to know that there's not going to be rate cases year after year after year. So we're at this inflection point, to your point, Emy, where we need to start working together to make decisions, and so our future selves will be happy with the reliability and economic choices we made, because we made them back to the fundamentals of, the principles of law and economics.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And that's something I think the governor has definitely told me in my office to lean in on, is that we're benefiting from the good choices people made 20 years ago, 50 years ago. And it's incumbent upon us right now to make those good choices again. And the only way that we can do that is by working together. And another great thing about being a Utahn that I really love is we're innovative. Everybody here wants to be part of the solution, and that provides us with a really unique opportunity to be able to solve some of these really big challenges. So when I think about the really great things that I get to do with my job, one of those things is learning about innovative technologies that are homegrown in Utah and that are happening in Utah. So Nate, for you at Tourus, I think people think a lot of times about batteries as the thing you stick in the Energizer Bunny and then that's it and it dies and it's done. But can you just sort of tell us all about what you're doing and what the future of energy storage and that is to be able to help us with our energy future?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it took me a long time to kind of learn how the grid worked. And so for those of you who don't understand how the grid works, you have main transmission, sub-transmission, distribution. So kind of 3 layers of the cake. And our company is really positioned at really sub-transmission distribution, not main transmission. And like Dick said, for the last 100 years, I mean, I think the electrical grid is the greatest invention that man has ever, or individuals have ever created. And the reason why is that a motor generator spins 200, 300 miles from here, plus or minus 60 hertz. And frequency is, traveling this distance to give us reliable, scalable, and secure power every single day. So, when you think about expanding the resilience of the grid and coming up with something innovative, there's really three things that I think about. When you're building a company to go interconnect with something that is so complex but looks so simple to the face of everyone else, you have to build a product that is plus or minus 1% across 300 miles of main transmission. He has 17,000 miles, I think. Is that right? 17,000 miles of main transmission. We're over 1,000 miles of main transmission. And so what we built, you guys, is a hardware, firmware, and software product. And then we built a flywheel energy storage device that creates inertia, just like a motor generator. So just think about a large power plant miniaturized. And that is regionally distributed across main transmission. But when you think about a transmission operator, they look at our product no different than they do a coal plant or a CNG asset. And so when there's frequency issues or voltage issues or fast frequency response, or you need something to deploy very, very quickly, and I'm talking like within 30 seconds, we have to deploy within milliseconds in order to keep the grid up to make sure that it's staying plus or minus 60 hertz at 1%. And so our entire team is comprised of engineers. So 90% of the company is engineers. And I think something that America got away from is manufacturing products in the United States. So we design it, we engineer it. Instead of putting that product on main transmission, we had to test it on main transmission for 3 years. And that product had to have 99.9% uptime and then 99.9% telemetry. And then we'd have to get an unplanned event anywhere across 1,000 miles of main transmission, and it had to work at 99.9% of the time. After that, we have to O&M it, which is operations and maintenance. So we want to make sure this asset lasts as long as grid-tied infrastructure does. And we want that to be at least 25 years, just like a transformer out there. So we want it reliable, scalable, and secure. Secure is probably the most important thing, and that is a very new development for the national grid. Right now, our product ships with a cybersecurity appliance. And so we are looking at nation-state actors attacking the grid, not only digitally, but also physically. So infrared cameras, 24/7 video surveillance, and then we look at what's called DDoS attacks, digital attacks. And we get attacks from nation-state actors 4,000 to 5,000 times a week on our products. And so we want to make sure that when anyone puts something that connects to our grid, it's made by Americans, protected by Americans, and then helps us to expand the resilience of an already incredible invention that this team manages. So it is an honor to serve and work on it.
And thank you, Nate. I think it just demonstrates that when we start talking about energy and we talked about critical minerals, you can't divorce any of that from cybersecurity. And really, when you look at the entire economic ecosystem, all of these things work together, and that's why it's so important that we have good, reliable, secure, affordable energy so that we can make sure we have a healthy economy. So Jonathan, to me, the ACES project just reaffirms that Utah is the whole package. We've got wildly diverse, wonderful resources in the state for energy and beyond. And so I'd love for you to just discuss a little bit about how the ACES project is so innovative in that it takes energy resources and converts them and stores them and delivers green hydrogen at an industrial scale, which is new and amazing. And talk a little bit about why Utah is the right place for this project.
Yeah, thanks so much. So ACES at its core, both in the generation side, but the thing that really makes it unique is the storage side of the business. And so to put that in scale for you, we have these two salt caverns, and they store about 300 gigawatt hours of energy in these salt caverns. And that's about 2 to 3 times the installed battery capacity in the US today. And so where that plays into the reliability and the stability of the grid is that we can be the swing player in that space. And so as the otherwise curtailed green energy would be unused, we can actually take that energy, convert it into hydrogen, and then store it into these salt caverns for both short and long duration storage. and then discharging that as a 20 to 30% stream into the natural gas that the IPP power plant is going to be burning across the street. And so when you think about that innovation size of that, the scale of this has never been done before. And so one of the things that we think a lot about, particularly right now, is demonstrating that safe and reliable piece of this in commissioning a facility of this scale and of this size, right? And so that's what we're intently focused on right now, and demonstrating that we can do that effectively, we can do that safely, and we can do that efficiently as we go through. You mentioned a little bit about just the ecosystem of the different assets that we have available to us, particularly here in the state of Utah. And so this geologic formation of the salt dome, alongside ACES, we also have the Magnum natural gas storage assets. And so that brings together something that can be a very powerful component around the combination of the green hydrogen, but also the natural gas solutions that we can provide to different customers across all industries, whether that be data, whether that be heavy industries or otherwise. And so it's really the combination of those two things that really brings to the forefront all of the different opportunities that we could see here in the state of Utah. I think one of the other things that underpins that innovation piece is the supportive policy, right? And the alignment with Operation Gigawatt around safe, reliable, affordable energy. And then ACES having the component of being lower carbon in association with that. And so that supportive policy and then a very pragmatic regulatory environment for us to be able to operate in helps us to be most effective and to bring this innovation into real life and to bring it into operations and make it commercial.
Thanks. So, Dick, right now utilities are facing unprecedented challenges, from wildfire mitigation risk to we've seen the demand for energy increase with the AI revolution, and to Nate's point, it's a national security issue that we can't let go of. What, from your perspective, are the top two most promising technologies for meeting the moment that we're in? And from your perspective, how will they change the energy landscape?
Yeah, it's going to be hard just to pick two, to be honest.
You can pick more, it's fine.
Okay. Our business, it is a miracle, to Nate's point. Anytime we turn on a light switch, there's been the production of the electrons, the transmission, then the distribution over thousands of miles. But technology is changing our business in lots of different ways. As we look at our generating resources, there's more diversity of generation resources and more innovation in the generation sector than there's been in a long time. And things like advanced nuclear, geothermal, those kinds of things. The challenge for us that we're facing right now is how to take advantage and help those technologies kind of mature. Because in our regulatory environment, we're intentionally incented not to take risks on research and development or technology risk. But we're working on ways to do that. We have our Kemmerer project in Wyoming, where we're partnered with TerraPower to explore advanced nuclear technology. We're able to come up with an approach where our customers are protected. They're not taking additional risks from technology development or deployment, but we're going to be able to purchase the power, the output of that at a price that's comparable to, hopefully, comparable to our existing resources. Wildfire has changed the way we operate our business, and we've deployed a ton of technology on wildfire to both in terms of monitoring the weather, monitoring our system, getting more transparency into our system, all kinds of new technology, including fast-acting relays and different types of communication devices, so we can see disturbances on the system faster, using drones to do patrols. And then we're starting to use AI to do some of the analysis that we've traditionally done. So it's hard to pick just one, but the innovation is there. I think the bigger challenge for me, sometimes quite frankly, is back to the pressures on affordability and stability, is being able to take advantage and deploy some of those technologies or expand our generation resources in ways and in projects that customers will support paying for and regulators will allow us to recover. So it's frustrating to be kind of on the lagging end of adopting technology sometimes. That's why our partnership with Nate was so important, because he was able to find a way to bring his technology to me within a framework I could play in, and I just think there's going to be more need for that going forward.
Yeah, it's like chicken and the egg problems. But back to sort of the miracle of having the lights come on. Both of you have talked about how it's a heavy technology intensive industry, right? It's not just like you're firing up a coal plant and the power turns on magically. You've got to balance everything. And I think that balance, like sitting in a control room in a power plant where they're making decisions constantly about the entire grid and how the interplay is something you can't take for granted, and why innovation is so important in this space to be able to handle that given all the pressures that we have. So, we're all here because we love rural Utah, and rural Utah is really important. And the rural Utah is the backbone of the energy production in the state. It has energy in its DNA, and really has been powering the West for since we got here. So, thinking about it from a utility perspective, Dick, you've got to serve a patchwork of rural and urban communities across the state. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what does the energy future look like for rural Utah?
Yeah, I'm very lucky, and I feel privileged to be in this job, especially at this time. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, but there's so many opportunities. And I think that we are primary, with the exception of the Salt Lake area. We are a rural utility. I mean, those 1.2 million customers we have are mostly in rural areas, right? And then all of our production comes from the rural parts of the state. But these, we're members in the community, right? We're part of the community there. We work there, we live there, we pay taxes, we pay power bills. So I think the opportunities for those, we're going to need the capacity and the generation resources we have today. I think it was Governor Cox is talking about abundance earlier with the secretary. We need all the stuff that we have today. We have to optimize it, we have to modernize it, but we also need to expand into new stuff. So when you think about some of the rural areas like, Emery County, Iron County, I think there's a future for thermal for a while, for a long time to come. But I also think that there's opportunities for technology advancements to help with that, whether it be CCUS, advanced nuclear, and all the work that the state's doing to look at those areas where we can build for the future and optimize what we have. So I'm pretty bullish about it. I'm excited about what the opportunities they have, because back to the fundamentals that haven't changed, the way we get to affordability, reliability, and stability is economies of scale, and that's building big machines, and that generally happens in rural places. So I'm optimistic. There's challenges, but I think it's going to be great.
Great. And as we as a state are really committed to making sure we maintain those baseload resources that we have, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another place that has taken such extraordinary steps to protect those resources. And so we look forward to operating those, but also, the governor's given us the charge to protect those resources, but lean into what we need for the future, and we need all of it. I mean, an abundance mindset isn't just a talking point, it's actually the thing that needs to happen. So, Jonathan, ACES calls rural Utah home. And I'd love for you to spend a little bit of time talking about how you interact with the community and what type of benefit it is to the community that you're in to be there and to have this project.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the forefront of this, it really is a partnership with these local communities, right? And so that partnership has to be beneficial for both. And so we've really appreciated the leadership in our local community there and the partnership that we've been able to have so far. So some of the key things that we really look towards is going back to that safe and reliable startup of this first-of-a-kind facility, and so making sure that we have the emergency response, we have the capability and capacity in these local communities to be able to respond to those, and make sure that we're prepared for those types of events. The second piece is thinking through the workforce side of it. And so we've got 20 to 25 highly skilled jobs that'll be supporting ACES from now and into the future for phase one. And these are highly technical jobs. And so thinking through how do we create a pipeline locally to be able to support those jobs in the future. And so partnering with local schools and colleges around those technical development programs to prepare those individuals for these highly skilled jobs of the future. And I think the other thing that comes into play is how do we start to demonstrate over the long term that we're thinking through the things that come in the future? How do we be responsible and sustainable and responsible in this development over the long term? And so partnering with the University of Utah around water management, and how do we really optimize this system that really hasn't been created before? How do we make it most efficient for us to be able to be a good partner, not only for our customer, but also for the local community there? And then just thinking through creating a supply chain that really did not exist prior to ACES coming online and becoming commercial. And so thinking through kind of the first phase of this project having nearly a $300 million impact in the state of Utah, right? And then making sure that that can be realized both in phase one and as a foundational asset for those next phases and the next opportunities that you can go and pursue.
And that's great. The opportunities that energy brings to rural communities aren't just about the production, but they're about everything that goes into the production, making it happen and serving that industry. It's a really powerful tool for rural Utah. Nate, can you talk to us about how your technology can change energy production and consumption in rural Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I maybe pivot a tiny bit?
For sure.
Just on the innovation side?
Yeah.
Just by raise of hands in the audience, how many people use some form of artificial intelligence like ChatGPT or anything else on a daily basis?
Everybody.
Yeah, so this is kind of my point is, so I'll kind of back into what sits behind like the moment in time that we're in right now. So an H100 NVIDIA 1 megawatt stack of technology that we're using, in order for Dick, myself, or ACES to be successful here, and I promise I'll stitch the rural piece together. I promise.
I believe it.
When you think about all the problems that are kind of pervading the grid, they're all happening behind the meter. The loads that are showing up behind the meter are really, really challenging. And so to kind of stick with the H100 NVIDIA 1 megawatt chipset, if you have a blip in power, you have 11 milliseconds to catch the circuit in a 1 megawatt chipset. 11 milliseconds. So Dick or I or anyone else has to get there in 8 or 5 or 3 milliseconds. Like that's the amount of kind of advanced technology that's coming to bear. And we are, you heard this before, but we are in a race for knowledge and we are in a race for energy. And so the other big piece of this, why manufacturing jobs are such a big deal right now, is that the people that we need to advance manufacturing against a nation-state actor, and you also have to build the energy infrastructure to do it at the exact same time, requires automated manufacturing equipment. So I'll give you an example. In our manufacturing facility, you guys, we have a vertical turning lathe that shaves our rotor to 10,000th of an inch. And so if we have a blip in power, I throw away a $90,000 part. That type of automated manufacturing behind the meter is what's advancing our ability to be able to do that at massive scale. And so you need a lot of people that have worked on this problem with a lot of sophistication. And frankly, Dick said this, but in rural communities, you have fourth generation line workers for medium voltage, and subtransmission distribution that are way smarter than me or anyone else that works at Tourus today. And when we bring those people, to come build all of this infrastructure with us, they're giving us all the subtle nuances that it takes to pick up the slack in an 11 millisecond voltage droop. I mean, the science that's required to be able to do that at massive scale, and we continue to do it. And so I think when I think about stitching communities together, we need everyone. We need 10 Tauruses to be built right now because we are in a race for energy infrastructure domination along with knowledge. And anyone that lives in a rural community, these guys know I'm a crier, so I'm gonna try not cry this time. But my mom grew up, and I think before last year I was here, but she grew up in Schofield, Utah, in the mountain fuel camps. So yeah, any Schofield or Price folks here, but her dad was committed to energy infrastructure, and that just riddled through my whole entire family on the responsibility to be able to make sure that our kids have the right education, to advance society and to be able to protect this wonderful country that we live in right now today. So yeah, I think it's a big deal.
Now, we're going to kind of head into our concluding discussion here. And this is a very forward-looking industry, and it has to be. And we're all here because we care about Utah families, we care about Utah's future. When you think about where your business is and your company is, and you think about 10 years from now, what types of things do you think we'll be doing and talking about and projects we'll be building? And I'm going to start with Jonathan, because from ACES, because it's so new, sort of what does your outlook look like over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I think for us, again, demonstrating the responsibility around starting up safely and reliably, it really starts there, right? We have to demonstrate that this can be done at scale and in a meaningful way. As I start to think about the next 5 to 10 years, it really comes back to that ecosystem of assets that we talked about. And so as we think about ACES, having a foundational set of assets around not just the generation side, but also the storage side. And so combining that with the Magnum natural gas storage and looking at solutions that expand well beyond just the power generation sector. And so thinking about data and infrastructure and hyperscalers, and then bringing all of these different things together in a way that has a scale that is very unique to Utah. And as we look across the Midwest and to the West, it is absolutely unique to Utah. This geologic formation that we have here that we can utilize for safe and secure storage of hydrogen, natural gas, or other forms of energy storage, it is absolutely unique to what we have here in Utah. And so I think the combination of that with the support of policy, the relationships that we have across the state, and then the regulatory environment that we can experience here, that provides a foundation that is extremely unique in the US, but also globally around progressing this type of innovation. And then the partnership within ACES around Chevron and Mitsubishi, both as an owner and equipment supplier, and bringing to bear those resources that really think on a global scale around what those solutions can be, and then Utah having that unique combination where it is an attractive place to be and to progress those assets.
Thanks. Dick?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not so great at predicting the future, but I'm going to talk about what I know and what we're committed to and what the aspiration is. What I know is that, the people of Utah, the people that work in my company, the partners that we have, we're all committed to realizing the abundance because we, live for now, but we're also planning and working together to create a future that our future selves will be proud of and to leave something behind. And I know, the people that work in my company, all 2,000 of them are beyond committed to that, whether they work in the office figuring out rates or climbing poles in the middle of the night to get the power back on. They're there and they're committed to that. And then our partners that we're working together, I know that we're all committed to that. And the aspiration, I think, is to have a Utah that does realize the governor's vision of abundance and having plenty to be able to provide for today and in the future and make our country stronger. And then I think the commitment is the commitment we make to each other as people and as institutions to do what I call work within our gift. We all have our limitations, we all have our strengths, and we all have our challenges and the things we can control and the things we can't control. But when we work together, I really do think we can engage with each other, we can find ways through those challenges. So in 10 years' time, we'll look at an energy portfolio that is stable, a regulatory environment that is stable, and that it's building that abundance for the future that has the reliability pieces and the stability for everybody. So I think it's about the people, it's about the aspiration, and it's about the commitment to work because nothing happens without work.
Okay, well, I have kind of two different thoughts. So three things. I mean, we need education, we need government, and we need private sector. Kind of all three ingredients. On the on the government side, when our ancestors invented the electrical grid, we took risk. And I really liked the risks that we took. And there was a lot of regulatory pressure. We're moving that out of the way, but I think we still need to remind ourselves to take risk. We'll still try and install in a new city or a new town, and just speaking candidly, one town can take me 3 months to get a permit and get an HJ approval, and one town can take me a week or a day. And so we have to kind of fix that, I think, at scale. The second thing is the private sector. The thing I learned from large-scale utility partners is how to fund our business. So when I thought about traditionally starting a company, you go to venture capital and then you fuel it that way. Well, that's not actually how utility operates. You have to go get a giant capital debt line, fund all of it, and then deploy it on the grid, and it has to be reliable, scalable, and secure. So how we think about funding this is actually a completely different mechanism by the way we've thought about traditionally funding companies if we want to innovate the technology. And the third thing, and I don't think the irony is lost on me, I mean, we're at Southern Utah University. The jobs that are going to be required to be able to get us down the field requires completely different roles and completely different jobs. I have 4 sons. I have 2 that are in college at Utah State University. And I think, and I don't know if this is prevalent for you, but when my 2 sons graduate, they're not really sure what it looks like. They're not really sure what jobs look like for them, whether they're in engineering or in math or in marketing. We are in a really unique time where we're redefining the roles that we're going to be participating in for the rest of our lives. And so I think it's a great opportunity for those of you that have families, that have children, and that are going through K through 12 education and higher education. We really have to be thoughtful around what type of things we want to be responsible for 10 years from now, and what type of curriculum development we want to put in the souls of our kids.
And the Office of Energy Development, we're working on workforce development. We're working on trying to facilitate the entire energy ecosystem. We're working to take advantage responsibly of the many diverse resources we have here while still maintaining the excellent environment that we have. And the only way that we can do that is by working together. And having partners like rural communities, like the legislature, the governor, and you guys, and all of us working together, we can do it. And we've got a big moment to meet, but together we can make it happen. And I'm just so thrilled to have been able to sit down with you guys and to be here today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.